The phone slipped from her fingers and hit the tiled floor with a sharp crack just as the message notification popped up. Ava Carter froze, her heart slamming so hard against her ribs it felt violent. She stood in the middle of her apartment, breath trapped in her throat, eyes locked on the glowing screen like it might explode. The room smelled faintly of coffee gone cold and lavender lotion, but all she could feel was heat crawling up her spine. She lunged for the phone, fingers trembling, and that was when she saw it. The photo. Sent. Delivered. Oh no, 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 no. Ava swiped up so fast her thumb hurt. Her pulse roared in her ears as she checked the contact again, praying her eyes had lied to her the first time. They hadn't. Instead of Lena's name, the number at the top of the screen read, Building Office. Her stomach dropped. The photo stared back at her from the chat history, bold, intimate, unapologetic. Black fabric against deep brown skin. Confidence she had forced herself to feel even though everything inside her had been breaking just minutes earlier. And she had sent it to the wrong number. Before she could even think, 3 dots appeared beneath the image. Typing. Ava's breath hitched. She didn't wait to see what came next. She slammed the block button, her finger jabbing the screen like she was trying to kill something crawling out of it. The phone went silent. She leaned back against the kitchen counter, chest rising and falling fast. "It's fine," she whispered to herself. "It's just maintenance. Probably some bored guy. I blocked it. It's done." She didn't know yet that nothing about this was done. If you want to know how one mistake turns into the most dangerous night of her life, pause for 1 second, like this video, and subscribe, because this story only gets darker from here. Ava slid down until she was sitting on the floor, knees pulled to her chest. Just an hour earlier, she had been spiraling on her couch, scrolling through her phone, watching her ex Marcus laughing in a rooftop photo with a woman who looked effortless and happy, his arm around her waist like Ava had never existed. 4 years, reduced to a caption. Lena had tried to talk her down over the phone, telling her she didn't need anyone's approval to feel beautiful again. "Do something just for you," Lena had said. "Something bold, something that reminds you who you are." So Ava had stood in front of her mirror, heart racing, hands shaking, telling herself this was about confidence, not attention. She had taken the photo, stared at it in disbelief, and for the first time in months, smiled. And then she sent it to the wrong place. By midnight, Ava had convinced herself it was over. She showered, changed into an oversized t-shirt, and crawled into bed, forcing her thoughts into anything but the image of that red receipt. She slept lightly, dreams fractured and uneasy. Morning came too fast. Ava awoke to the sound of her phone buzzing on the nightstand. Her eyes snapped open instantly, fear surging before logic could catch up. She grabbed the phone. Unknown number. 1 missed call. Her stomach twisted. She told herself not to panic. She told herself maintenance wouldn't call from a private number. She told herself she was overreacting. Then there was a knock. Not loud, not rushed, just slow, deliberate taps against her front door. Ava sat up in bed, every nerve screaming. She glanced at the clock. 8:12 a.m. Another knock followed, firmer this time. Her apartment was suddenly too quiet. She slipped out of bed, padding across the floor, peeking through the peephole with her heart in her throat. A man stood in the hallway. Not maintenance. He wore a dark, tailored suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. His posture was perfect, hands folded calmly in front of him. No badge, no clipboard. His face was unreadable, cold, professional, patient. Ava swallowed hard. She stepped back from the door, panic flooding her chest. Maybe if she didn't answer, he'd go away. Maybe this had nothing to do with last night. Her phone buzzed again. A text from the unknown number appeared on her screen. "Miss Carter, we know you're home." Her blood turned to ice. Another knock, heavier now. "Ava Carter," he called through the door, his voice smooth and controlled. "I'm here on behalf of Mr. Hahn. We need to speak."
She pressed her back against the wall, hands shaking so badly she nearly dropped her phone. She'd never heard the name before, but something in his tone told her she should have. "I think you have the wrong apartment," she said, her voice barely steady enough to sound human. A pause. Then, calmly, "You sent a message last night that was intended for someone else." Her throat closed. "We're not angry," the man continued, "but ignoring Mr. Hahn is unwise." Ava squeezed her eyes shut. This wasn't happening. This was some elaborate scare tactic, some sick joke. "What do you want?" she asked. The man leaned slightly closer to the door, lowering his voice. "To escort you downstairs. Mr. Hahn is waiting." Her mind raced. Call the police, run, scream. But her legs wouldn't move. "And if I don't?" she whispered. There was another pause, just long enough to feel dangerous. Then he said, "Mr. Hahn prefers apologies in person." Silence swallowed the hallway. Ava stared at the door, knowing with terrifying clarity that whatever choice she made next would change her life forever. And she had no idea that the man waiting downstairs wasn't just powerful, he was one of the most dangerous men in the city.
Ava stayed frozen for several seconds after the man's footsteps retreated from the door. Her apartment felt smaller now, like the walls had shifted closer while she wasn't looking. She pressed her palm to her chest, trying to slow her breathing, trying to think. This was insane. She grabbed her phone and searched the number she had accidentally sent the photo to. The same generic label stared back at her. Building office. No name, no warning, nothing to suggest that behind that number was a man who sent people in tailored suits to knock on doors at 8 in the morning. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. 5 minutes, Miss Carter. Her hands went cold. "No," she whispered. "This is crazy." She paced the living room, bare feet slapping softly against the floor. She considered calling Lena, but what would she say? I accidentally sexted a stranger and now his people are outside my door? She thought about the police, but fear wrapped around that idea too. What if this man really was powerful? What if involving authorities only made things worse? Another knock echoed through the apartment, firmer, more final. Ava swallowed, walked to the door and opened it just enough to look out. The same man stood there, unmoving, like he had never left. "I'm not going anywhere," Ava said, forcing steel into her voice. "You can tell Mr. Hahn that." The man's gaze flicked briefly to her bare feet, her oversized t-shirt, her tense posture. "He already knows," he replied. "That's why he's waiting." "For what?" "For you to decide. And for what it's worth, you are not in danger. Not right now." That qualifier sent a chill straight down her spine. "Who is he?" she demanded. The man hesitated just for a second. "Someone who doesn't like being ignored." Ava laughed sharply, more hysteria than humor. Then maybe he shouldn't be sending creepy texts to women who didn't mean to message him. The man's eyes darkened slightly. "You misunderstand," he said. "Mr. Hahn didn't think the message was an accident." Ava's stomach dropped. "What?" "He thought it was an invitation." Her breath caught. "You blocked him," he continued. "That was unexpected." Ava stepped back, pulse pounding. "I'm not going anywhere. You can leave." The man studied her for a long moment, then nodded once. "As you wish, but Mr. Hahn will not." Before she could respond, he turned and walked away. Ava slammed the door shut and locked it, her heart racing like she had just escaped something terrible. She leaned against the wood, sliding down slowly until she was sitting on the floor again, just like the night before. Her phone buzzed immediately. Unknown number. "You shouldn't be afraid. I only wanted to meet you." Her fingers hovered over the screen. Another message followed. "You blocked me was a mistake." She dropped the phone like it burned. For the rest of the day, Ava existed in a fog. She tried to work on her photography edits, but every sound in the hallway made her flinch. Every shadow near her door tightened her chest. She barely ate, she barely breathed. By evening, the sun dipped low, painting the city orange, and her anxiety had twisted into something darker. Curiosity. Who was this man? Why her? And why did a part of her hate that she had blocked him without hearing him out? At 7:30 p.m., another knock echoed. This time, Ava didn't scream. She didn't panic. She stood, walked to the door, and opened it. The same man from the morning stood there again, but now he was joined by a sleek black car parked at the curb below her apartment window. Its engine hummed softly, patient. "He's here," the man said. "I told you I wasn't going. And yet you're dressed." She looked down at herself, surprised. Sometime during the afternoon she had changed. She had chosen a simple black dress, nothing revealing, nothing bold, controlled, elegant. Armor. "I'm not wearing what he asked for," she said. The man inclined his head. He expected that. Ava hesitated, then stepped into the hallway, locking her door behind her. Each step toward the elevator felt unreal, like she was watching herself from outside her body. The car door opened smoothly as they reached the curb. Inside, a man sat alone in the back seat. He looked up when Ava approached, and her breath caught. He was younger than she expected, early 30s maybe, impeccably dressed, dark hair neatly styled, his expression calm, too calm. His eyes, sharp and observant, swept over her like he was memorizing her. "Miss Carter," he said, his voice low and even, "I thank you for coming." She didn't respond immediately. "You sent me a photo," he continued, as if discussing the weather. "I assumed you wanted my attention." "I did not," she lifted her chin. "So I see." He smiled faintly. There's no anger in his tone. That's somehow worse. "I blocked you because you scared me," she said. "You scared me because you don't know me," he replied. "That's fair." He gestured to the seat across from him. "Sit. If you still want to leave, you can." Ava hesitated, then slid into the car, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. The door closed. The car began to move. "My name is Han Se-jin. I own this building and several others." Her heart skipped. "So you're my landlord?" "One of them," he corrected. "But that's not why I wanted to meet you." "Then why?" she asked. He studied her for a moment. "Because people don't usually send photos like that unless they're trying to remember who they are." The words hit too close. Ava looked away, jaw tight. "You don't know anything about me." "I know you were hurting," he said calmly. "I know you wanted to feel powerful, and I know you didn't expect anyone like me to answer." She turned back to him sharply. "What does that mean?" He met her gaze. "It means you made a mistake, but mistakes are interesting." The car slowed. "We're going somewhere public. Dinner, nothing more." Ava's instincts screamed at her to get out, to run, to never look back. But another part of her, the part that had taken that photo, whispered that this moment mattered. If you're feeling the tension right now, pause for a second and hit the like button, because what happens next changes everything. The car pulled up in front of a quiet, upscale restaurant, lights glowing softly inside. Se-jin opened his door and stepped out, extending a hand toward her, not demanding, not commanding, inviting. Ava stared at it, her pulse racing, and then she took it.
The restaurant was quieter than Ava expected. No loud music, no crowd, just low conversation and soft lighting that made everything feel private without being intimate. The kind of place where people came to talk about things they didn't want overheard. Se-jin didn't touch her as they walked in, didn't guide her with a hand on her back the way men usually did. He simply walked beside her, matching her pace, as if daring her to decide whether she belonged next to him or not. They were seated almost immediately. As soon as the waiter left, Ava leaned forward slightly, resting her elbows on the table. "Before anything else," she said, I need to understand something. Sejin looked at her calmly. Ask. You could have ignored it, she said. The photo. You could have deleted it. Instead, you sent someone to my door. Why? He folded his hands together, considering. Because most people don't dare send something like that unless they're asking to be seen. That doesn't give you the right to show up at my house. No, he agreed, it doesn't. The ease with which he admitted that unsettled her more than defensiveness would have. So why do it? She pressed. Because when you blocked me, he said quietly, it told me you weren't playing a game, and I don't ignore things that feel real. Ava scoffed softly. You don't even know me. I know you live alone, he said. I know you work late editing photos. I know you stopped answering your mother's calls last month. And I know you were angry when you took that picture. Her blood ran cold. You had someone look into me, she asked. He didn't deny it. I needed to know if you were reckless or just human. And what did you decide? She asked. He held her gaze. Human. Ava leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. You do this with everyone who accidentally texts you? A faint smile touched his lips. No, just the ones who don't apologize. Her stomach tightened. So this is about pride. It's about curiosity, he corrected. Pride would have made me angry. Curiosity made me patient. The waiter returned with water and menus. Ava barely looked at hers. Let me be clear, she said once they were alone again. I didn't send that photo to you. I don't owe you anything. I know, Sejin replied. That's why I asked you to come, not demanded. Ava studied him closely now. There was no visible aggression, no raised voice, no intimidation, just control. Absolute, quiet control. And that scared her more than shouting ever could. What happens after dinner? She asked. It depends on you, he said. She laughed humorlessly. That's not comforting. It's honest. She sighed, rubbing her temples. You know this looks bad, right? Powerful man, wrong message, showing up at my door. Every warning bell in my head is screaming. And yet you're still here, he said. I'm here because I don't like being afraid of things I don't understand. Something like approval flickered in his eyes. They ordered food. The conversation shifted slowly away from the photo, away from the mistake. Sejin asked about her work, her photography. Ava answered cautiously at first, then with growing confidence as she realized he was actually listening. You don't shoot for attention, he observed. You shoot to capture moments people overlook. She blinked. How would you know that? I looked at your portfolio, he said, before I came to see you. She didn't know whether to feel flattered or violated. Finally, she said, you're thorough. You don't survive by being careless. There it was, the first real hint of something darker beneath the polished surface. Survive from what? She asked. His gaze sharpened. Enemies. Ava swallowed. What kind of business are you in exactly? He didn't answer immediately. Then, some legal, some complicated. That was not reassuring. The food arrived, grounding her momentarily. She ate slowly, watching him from across the table. He barely touched his plate, more focused on her reactions than the meal itself. You're calmer now, he said. Because I'm trying not to think about how easily you found me, she replied. It frightens you? Yes. It should, he said without hesitation. But fear doesn't always mean danger. Sometimes it means awareness. She stared at him. You talk like someone who's used to people being afraid of him. I'm used to people pretending they aren't, he said. Silence stretched between them. Ava pushed her plate away. I want to ask you something, and I want a straight answer. Go ahead. If I had said no today, if I'd refused to come, what would you have done? He considered her carefully, then answered, Nothing, but I would have remembered you. Her chest tightened. Somehow, that felt worse. Dinner ended quietly. Outside, the night air felt heavier, like the city itself was holding its breath. I can take you home, or I can invite you somewhere else. Ava hesitated. Somewhere else, where? My penthouse, he said calmly, so you can see the truth of my life and decide for yourself whether you ever want to see me again. Her instinct screamed again, but so did her curiosity. "If I say no," she asked, "then this ends here. No more calls, no more visits." She studied his face, searching for deceit. She found none, just certainty. Ava exhaled slowly. "Fine," she said, "but if I feel uncomfortable at any point, I leave." "Agreed." The car ride was quiet. The city lights blurred past the windows as Ava's thoughts raced. She knew she was crossing a line she couldn't uncross. The elevator ride up was silent. When the doors opened, Ava stepped into a space that took her breath away. Not because it was flashy, but because it was controlled. Clean lines, floor-to-ceiling windows, subtle security cameras tucked discreetly into corners. "This is where you live?" she asked. "This is where I exist," Sajin replied. He poured her a glass of water, not alcohol, another small detail that unsettled her. "You're careful," she said. "With you," he corrected. She turned to face him. "Why?" His eyes softened just slightly. "Because you didn't ask me for anything." The moment hung between them, charged and fragile. "If you're still watching right now, comment, because this is the point where Ava's life starts to split in two." She didn't know it yet, but tonight wasn't about danger. It was about connection, and that, she would soon learn, was far more dangerous.
Ava stood near the windows, arms folded, staring down at the city glowing beneath the penthouse like a living thing. From this height, the noise disappeared. Cars became streaks of light. People became invisible. Power felt different up here, quiet, detached, absolute. "You don't have to stand so far away," Seojin said behind her. She didn't turn. "I'm just taking it in." He nodded, as if he understood that she was also taking him in. The space felt intimate without being close. No music, no staff, just the hum of the city and the tension between them. "You said you wanted me to see the truth of your life," Ava said. "This is the truth?" "This is the surface," he replied, "the part people envy." She glanced back at him. "And the rest?" He walked toward the bar, poured himself a glass of water, then leaned against the counter. "The rest is not something you show people you don't trust." Ava raised an eyebrow. "Do you trust me?" A faint smile touched his lips. "I trust that you won't pretend to be someone you're not." She let out a quiet breath. "You're good at saying things that sound reassuring without actually reassuring me. That's because reassurance is often a lie. Clarity is more useful." She studied him. "Okay, clarity then. What happens if I decide I don't want this, whatever this is?" Seojin met her gaze evenly. "Then you leave tonight, and I don't contact you again." "And if I stay?" "Then you accept that my life is not simple, and neither will yours be." Ava's chest tightened. "That sounds like a warning." "It is," he said, "and an invitation." She walked toward the couch, sitting slowly, grounding herself. "You talk like this is some kind of transaction." "It's not," he replied. "Transactions have rules. This has consequences." She laughed softly. "You're really not selling this." "I'm not trying to," he said. The honesty in that disarmed her. "Tell me something real about you," she said suddenly. "Not power, not danger, just you." Seojin considered her for a long moment, then spoke quietly. "I don't sleep much. I prefer control to comfort, and I don't let people close because proximity makes them targets." Ava's stomach sank. "Then why let me this close?" "Because you were already close the moment you pressed send." Silence stretched between them again, heavier now. Ava hugged a pillow to her chest, feeling suddenly exposed. "My ex used to tell me I was too much, too ambitious, too sensitive. He said no one would ever put up with me long term." Seojin's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "He was wrong." "You don't know that." "I know men like him," Seojin said. They shrink people so they don't feel small themselves. Ava swallowed, emotion rising unexpectedly. Why do you care? Because you don't need to be fixed, he said. You need to be seen. The words hit her harder than she expected. She looked away, blinking fast. She stood abruptly. I should go. He didn't stop her. I'll have the car ready. She grabbed her coat, heart racing, not from fear, but from the intensity of everything she was feeling. As she reached the door, she hesitated. Seo-jin, she said quietly. Yes? This doesn't end tonight, does it? No, he said softly. It doesn't. She left without another word. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur. Seo-jin didn't bombard her with messages. He didn't show up uninvited. Instead, he waited. When Ava reached out, tentatively at first, he responded with patience that unsettled her more than persistence would have. They met for coffee, then dinner again, then walks through quiet neighborhoods where no one recognized him. Slowly, Ava found herself laughing more, sleeping better, creating again. He funded a gallery showing for her photography without putting his name on it. He listened when she talked about her dreams. He never pushed, never rushed. But the danger never fully left. Ava noticed the black SUV that appeared more often outside her building. She noticed the way Seo-jin's tone changed when he answered certain calls. She noticed the man, Mr. Choi, always nearby. One night, as they sat together on the penthouse couch, Ava finally asked, Are we being watched? Seo-jin didn't lie. Yes. Her heart skipped. By who? People who don't like change. What kind of change? The kind that makes me careless, he said, looking at her. Her phone buzzed suddenly, breaking the moment. Unknown number. We see you. Her blood ran cold. Seo-jin was on his feet instantly, scanning the room. Show me. She handed him the phone, fingers shaking. This isn't a coincidence, is it? No, he said grimly. It's a warning. Ava felt fear surge, sharp and real. I didn't sign up for this. I know, he said, and I won't force you to stay. She looked up at him. Is that why you've been keeping your distance? Because you knew this was coming? Yes, he admitted, and because if they hurt you, I would burn everything down. The intensity in his voice scared her. She swallowed. Then maybe I should leave for both our sakes. Seo-jin closed his eyes briefly, then nodded. If that's what you want, I'll protect you from a distance. Ava stood there, torn, heart pounding. This was the moment she could walk away, be safe, be anonymous again. Instead, she said, No, I'm tired of running. Seo-jin opened his eyes, searching her face. Once you stay, he said quietly, there's no pretending this is harmless. I know, she replied, but I choose you. If you're still here right now, hit the like button, because from this moment on, the danger becomes real. Seo-jin nodded slowly. Then I'll make sure no one ever touches you. Neither of them knew that the greatest threat wasn't outside. It was already closer than either of them realized.
The message didn't stop after that night. At first, it came once every few days, a single line, no number, no location. You looked happy today. Careful who you trust. We're closer than you think. Ava stopped sleeping properly. Every vibration of her phone made her chest tighten. Every unfamiliar face on the street felt like a threat. Seo-jin increased security quietly, never announcing it, never making her feel trapped, but she noticed the changes anyway. Different cars, different routes. Mr. Choi always a few steps closer. One evening, Ava sat on the edge of Seo-jin's bed, staring at her phone with shaking hands. I can't keep living like this, she said. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Seo-jin crouched in front of her, steady and focused. You're not, he said. You're being tested. By who? She snapped. Someone who wants leverage, and you are the only thing in my life that can be used against me. The weight of that settled heavily in her chest. That's not comforting, she whispered.
I know, he said, but it's the truth. She looked at him then, really looked at him. The calm mask, the controlled breathing, the man who carried violence like a language he'd learned too young and never forgotten. Do you regret meeting me? Seo-jin didn't hesitate. No. Even now? Especially now. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a name she recognized. Marcus. Her stomach twisted. She hadn't spoken to him in weeks. She stared at the screen, dread creeping up her spine. Seo-jin noticed immediately. Who is it? My ex, she said quietly. He wants to meet, says he needs closure. Seo-jin's jaw tightened. You don't owe him anything. I know, said Ava, but this feels unfinished. It's dangerous, he warned. I won't be alone, she said quickly. Public place, coffee shop, 10 minutes. Seo-jin studied her face, then nodded once. Mr. Choi will be nearby. The cafe was bright and crowded, exactly the kind of place Ava thought would make her safe. Marcus was already there when she arrived, looking smaller somehow, less confident than the man who had once made her feel so insignificant. You look good, he said, standing awkwardly. Don't, Ava replied. Just say what you need to say. Marcus sighed. I messed up, he said. I didn't realize what I lost until it was gone. She felt nothing. No anger, no longing, just distance. I'm with someone else now, she said plainly. Marcus's eyes flickered. I know. Her heart skipped. What does that mean? I've seen you, he said quickly, around the city, with him. Ava stiffened. You've been following me? No, he held up his hands. I just noticed. They talked for a few minutes more, empty words, rehearsed apologies. Ava stood to leave, feeling lighter, like she had finally closed a door. As she reached for her phone to pay, Marcus leaned closer. Be careful, he murmured. Men like him don't change. She walked away without responding. That night, everything unraveled. Seo-jin was on the phone when Ava returned to the penthouse, his voice low and sharp in Korean. The moment he saw her face, he ended the call. What happened? He asked. My phone, Ava said, panic rising, battery draining, apps opening on their own. Seo-jin took it from her, eyes narrowing. He handed it to Mr. Choi within seconds. How long were you with him? Seo-jin asked. 10 minutes. Why? Mr. Choi's face darkened as he scrolled. There's spyware on this device. Ava's blood ran cold. What? Seo-jin closed his eyes slowly. He used you. The knock on the penthouse door came less than an hour later. Federal agents. They were polite, calm, smiling in a way that made Ava's skin crawl. Agent Morales leaned forward slightly. Miss Carter, we know you didn't mean to get involved. That's why we're offering you protection. Protection from who? Ava asked, her voice shaking. From the man you're living with, Morales said, glancing at Seo-jin. Seo-jin's expression didn't change. We have evidence, Morales continued. Financial crimes, racketeering. We just need confirmation. Ava looked at Seo-jin, heart pounding. Is this true? He met her gaze steadily. Parts of it. Morales smiled. Help us and you walk away clean. Refuse and we treat you as complicit. Ava's chest felt like it was caving in. You put spyware on my phone? Morales didn't deny it. Your ex helped us. Rage flared inside Ava. That's illegal. Not our concern, Morales replied smoothly. Your decision is. Ava stood, shaking. I won't betray him. Morales sighed. Then you're choosing the hard way. The agents left as calmly as they arrived. Silence swallowed the penthouse. I'm so sorry, Ava whispered. This is my fault. Seo-jin shook his head. No, he said firmly. This ends now. What does that mean? She asked. It means I walk away from everything. Her eyes widened. You can't just... I can, Seojin said, quietly, and I will. She stepped closer, fear and love tangling painfully in her chest. And what about us? Seojin looked at her, something raw breaking through his control. If I don't change, they will destroy you to reach me. Ava grabbed his hands. Then let them come. I'm not leaving. If you're still watching at this point, comment and tell me, would you walk away to save the person you love or stay and fight? Seojin pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. Then we fight, he said. Neither of them knew that the worst was still ahead.
The decision to fight didn't bring relief. It brought movement. By morning, Seojin's penthouse was no longer just a home. It was a command center. Phones rang quietly. Laptops appeared on the dining table. Mr. Choi spoke in hushed tones with men Ava had never seen before, their faces serious, their presence heavy. No one raised their voice. No one rushed. Everything felt controlled, like a storm being managed instead of avoided. Ava sat on the couch, knees drawn up, watching Seojin pace near the windows. "You don't have to stay here today," he said without turning. "I can move you somewhere safer." "This is the safest place, with you." He stopped pacing and looked at her then, really looked. "Safety with me comes at a cost." "So does running," she said quietly. He nodded once, accepting it. By noon, the messages stopped. No more anonymous warnings, no more taunts. The silence was worse. "They're waiting," Ava said. "Yes," Seojin replied. "So are we." That afternoon, Ava insisted on going back to her apartment to collect some things. Seojin argued at first, then compromised. Mr. Choi would go with her, along with another driver. The hallway outside her apartment looked exactly the same as always. Beige carpet, neutral walls, normal. That normality felt mocking. Inside, Ava moved quickly, grabbing clothes, her camera, her laptop. Every sound made her flinch. When she reached for her charger, she noticed something she hadn't before. A tiny, unfamiliar device plugged into the wall behind her desk. Her breath caught. "Mr. Choi!" He crossed the room instantly, crouching to examine it. His face hardened. "They were here." "When?" Ava whispered. "Recently," he replied. "This isn't federal." Her heart raced. "Then who?" Mr. Choi straightened. "Rivals." They left immediately. That night, Seojin didn't sleep. Ava lay awake beside him, listening to the quiet rise and fall of his breathing, feeling the tension coiled beneath his skin. "Do you ever get tired of this?" she asked softly. "Every day," he replied. "Why stay in it then?" "Because when you're born into certain worlds," he said, "leaving isn't just about walking away. It's about surviving the exit." Ava turned to him. "And if you don't survive?" Seojin was silent for a long moment. "Then at least I tried to give you something better." Her chest tightened. She pressed her forehead against his shoulder. "I don't want better without you." The next morning, everything exploded. Ava was in the kitchen when the power cut out. The lights flickered once, then died. The hum of the city vanished, replaced by a thick, terrifying silence. "Seojin," Ava called. He was already moving, pulling her toward him. "Stay close." The glass doors shattered without warning. Men flooded the penthouse, fast, armed, efficient. Ava screamed as Seojin shoved her behind the kitchen island. "Get down," he barked. The sounds were chaos, shouting, gunfire, breaking glass. Ava covered her head, heart pounding so hard she'd pass out. She could hear Seojin shouting in Korean, his voice sharp and commanding. Then hands grabbed her. Ava screamed, kicking wildly, but the grip was iron. A hood was pulled over her head. The world went dark. She was dragged, shoved, thrown into a vehicle. The engine roared to life. Her scream was swallowed by speed. When the hood came off, Ava was in a dark room, tied to a chair. Her wrists burned. Her mouth was dry. Panic clawed at her chest. A man stepped into the light, smiling coldly. He should have stayed in his lane. "Let me go," Ava said, her voice shaking. "This has nothing to do with me." The man laughed. "You're everything." Hours blurred together. Threats, silence, fear so intense it made her nauseous. She focused on breathing, on staying conscious, on remembering Seojin's face. Meanwhile, Seojin moved like something unleashed. He tracked them through cameras, through informants, through fear. His men followed without question. There was no hesitation, no mercy. When he found her, it was over in minutes. The door burst open, shouts, gunfire. Then Seojin was there, dropping to his knees in front of her, hands shaking as he untied her. "You're safe. I've got you." Ava collapsed into his arms, sobbing, the terror finally spilling over. The aftermath was quiet, too quiet. Back at the penthouse, Ava sat wrapped in a blanket, staring into space. Seojin knelt in front of her, his face drawn, eyes dark with something dangerous. "I scared you," he said. "Yes," she replied honestly. "I won't blame you if you leave now." She looked at him, really looked. The man who had just burned down half his world to save her. "I'm not leaving, but things can't stay like this." "They won't," he promised. "I'm done." Weeks later, the FBI returned. This time, they were empty-handed. The spyware was exposed, the illegal surveillance traced back to Marcus. Charges were filed, deals collapsed. Seojin's legal teams moved faster than anyone expected. Businesses were restructured, assets liquidated, doors closed quietly. By the time the dust settled, there was nothing left to charge him with. Marcus was arrested. Ava watched the news in silence as his face appeared on screen. She felt no triumph, only closure. Months later, they left the city. Hawaii first, then New York. Ava's photography flourished. Seojin stayed in the background, letting her shine. They married quietly, no spectacle, no witnesses beyond the ocean and the sky. Years later, Ava would look back at that photo, the mistake that started everything, and smile. If you made it this far, subscribe, like, and share, because some stories don't just entertain, they change you. And this one isn't over yet.
Ava didn't remember falling asleep, only the way exhaustion finally pulled her under like deep water. When she woke, sunlight spilled across unfamiliar white walls, soft and warm. The room smelled clean, faintly of salt and citrus. For one terrifying second, she didn't know where she was. Then she felt it, the steady pressure of a hand wrapped around hers. She turned her head and saw Seojin sitting beside the bed, his jacket gone, shirt sleeves rolled up, dark circles beneath his eyes. He looked like a man who hadn't closed them in days. "You're awake," he said quietly. Her throat tightened. "You're here." "I promised," he replied. Memories slammed back into her all at once. The shattered glass, the hood over her head, the cold room, the fear that had hollowed her out from the inside. Her breathing hitched. Seojin was on his feet instantly. "Ava, look at me." She tried. Tears blurred her vision. "You're safe," he said firmly. "No one can reach you here." Her fingers tightened around his. "I thought I was going to die." His jaw clenched. "I know." Silence stretched, thick with everything they didn't say. He helped her sit up, moving carefully, like she might shatter if he went too fast. "Where are we?" she asked. "Private medical residence. Off the grid, for now." "For now," she echoed. "Yes." That phrase had followed him everywhere lately. Later that day, a woman introduced herself as a trauma specialist. Ava answered questions she didn't want to think about, her voice flat, distant. When it was over, she felt drained, hollowed out. Seojin waited until they were alone again. "They'll come back," Ava said suddenly. "Won't they?" He didn't lie. Not like before, but yes. Pressure doesn't disappear. It changes shape. She swallowed. "And the FBI?" "They'll try again," he said. "They always do." As if summoned by his words, his phone rang. Seojin glanced at the screen and sighed. Agent Morales. Ava's stomach twisted. "I don't want to talk to them." "You won't," Seojin said. "I will." He stepped outside, voice low but intense. Ava couldn't hear the words, but she could hear the tone, controlled, unyielding. When he returned, his expression was unreadable. "They're offering you immunity again. New angle, new threats." "And if I say no?" she asked quietly. "They'll circle, dig, wait for weakness." Ava stared at the ceiling. "I'm so tired of being the leverage." "You're not leverage," Seojin said firmly. "You're the reason I'm ending this." She turned to him sharply. "Ending it how?" "Legally, completely." Her heart pounded. "That's not something you just decide." "I've already started. I'm selling assets, handing over control, exiting territories." "That's dangerous. More dangerous than staying." "Yes," he admitted, "but temporary." She searched his face. "And if someone decides they don't want to let you go?" "Then they'll find me very difficult to stop," he said calmly. Ava reached for his hand again. "Promise me something. Anything. Don't disappear into this. Don't shut me out." His grip tightened. "I won't." 2 days later, the FBI tried a different approach. This time, they didn't come in suits. They sent Marcus. Ava was sitting on the terrace when she saw him across the courtyard, hands cuffed loosely in front of him, flanked by 2 agents. Her breath left her lungs in a sharp rush. "I don't want to see him," she said immediately. Seojin stepped in front of her. "You don't have to." Agent Morales raised a hand. "Just 5 minutes, Miss Carter. Closure." Ava laughed bitterly. "You already took enough from me." Marcus looked smaller than she remembered, hollow-eyed, sweaty, desperate. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," he blurted. "They said you'd be safe." "You installed spyware on my phone," Ava snapped. "You sold me out." "They pressured me," he insisted. "They said I could walk away clean." "You didn't walk away. You pushed me into hell." Marcus's voice cracked. "I was jealous. I saw you with him and—" "Enough," Seojin cut in sharply. Agent Morales sighed. "This could all end easily." Ava stepped forward, eyes blazing. "No, this ends with the truth." She turned away without another word. Later that night, Ava broke down for the first time since the kidnapping. The sobs came hard and fast, ripping through her chest. Seojin held her, saying nothing, letting the storm pass through her instead of fighting it. "I hate that I'm afraid all the time," she whispered. "I know," he said softly. "I hate that part of me still wonders if this is worth it." He didn't flinch. "And—" She pulled back enough to look at him. "It is, but I need to know there's an end." "There is," he promised, "and it won't look like this." If you're still watching right now, pause and hit like, because this is the turning point where survival becomes transformation. Weeks passed. The FBI's case began to rot from the inside. Evidence excluded, warrants challenged. Marcus's deal unraveled as the illegal surveillance came to light. Headlines shifted. Ava watched from a distance, slowly regaining pieces of herself. She started photographing again, quiet moments, soft light, resilience in ordinary places. Her work deepened, darker but more honest. One evening she showed Seojin a new series. "It's beautiful," he said. "It's about fear and choosing anyway." He nodded. "That's what love is sometimes." He was thinner now, quieter. The weight of transition pressed on him, but there was something else too. Relief. "I got the final confirmation today," he told her one night. "The last operation is gone." Ava exhaled. "So we're free?" He hesitated. "Free is a strong word. Safer then?" "Yes, much safer." Ava smiled faintly. "I'll take it." When the trial date was announced for Marcus, Ava felt something inside her finally unclench. She didn't attend. She didn't need to. The past no longer owned her. Still, danger had one last breath left in it, and it wasn't done trying to remind them.
The warning came on a quiet morning, the kind that almost felt normal. Ava was standing barefoot in the kitchen,
sunlight spilling across the counter as she adjusted the focus on her camera. She had started a new habit, photographing ordinary moments before they disappeared. Steam curling from a mug, a shadow stretching across the floor, proof that calm still existed. Her phone buzzed once, just once. She ignored it at first, finishing the shot. When she finally picked it up, the screen was blank except for a single line of text from an unknown number. "Enjoy the quiet. It doesn't last." Her fingers went numb. "Seijin," she called, voice tight. He was beside her in seconds, reading the message over her shoulder. His face didn't change, but something dangerous sharpened behind his eyes. "They found us," Ava whispered. "No," he said calmly. "They're reminding us they haven't forgotten." "That's not better." "It is," he replied. "For people like them, silence means planning. Messages mean desperation." Ava hugged herself, fighting the familiar wave of fear. "I thought this was ending." "It is," Seijin said, "but endings are messy." He made a call, spoke briefly, then turned back to her. "We're moving tonight, just for a few days." "Again?" she asked, exhausted. "Yes," he admitted, "one last adjustment." That phrase, "one last," felt fragile, like glass. The house they moved to was smaller, quieter, tucked away where the ocean met trees instead of concrete. No skyline, no noise, just wind and water and distance. For 2 days, nothing happened. Ava slept through the night for the first time in months. She woke without dread clawing at her chest. She laughed, actually laughed when Seijin burned toast and tried to pretend it was intentional. For a moment, she let herself believe. On the third night, the power went out. Ava felt it instantly. The lights died, the hum vanished, silence rushed in, thick and unnatural. Her heart slammed. Seijin was already moving. "Stay here." "No," she said sharply. "I'm not hiding again." He paused, then nodded once. "Then stay behind me." Footsteps crunched outside, slow, deliberate. Ava's breathing went shallow. She reached for Seijin's hand, grounding herself in the warmth of his skin. A voice called out from the darkness, "You're making this harder than it needs to be." Seijin stepped forward. "Leave." A low chuckle followed. "You don't get to give orders anymore." Ava recognized the tone instantly. Someone used to power, furious at losing it. "I walked away," Seijin said evenly. "There's nothing left." "That's what you think," the voice replied. "You can't just erase a lifetime." The figure emerged into the dim porch light, tall, scarred, smiling without humor. Ava felt the fear surge, sharp and cold. "This ends tonight," the man said. "No," Ava said suddenly, stepping forward. Seijin shot her a warning look, but she didn't stop. "You don't own him," she said, voice shaking but strong. "And you don't own me." The man laughed. "You think this is about ownership? This is about disrespect." Seijin's voice dropped. "Walk away." For a split second, Ava thought violence would explode again, that everything they'd survived would be meaningless. Then sirens cut through the night. The man's smile vanished. Floodlights snapped on. Agents poured in from all sides, weapons raised. "Drop it!" someone shouted. The man hesitated, just long enough. They tackled him to the ground. Ava's knees buckled. Seijin caught her, pulling her close as the adrenaline crashed through her. Agent Morales stepped into view, face grim. "We've been tracking him for weeks. He made a mistake coming for you." Ava stared at him. "So, that's it?" Morales nodded. "That's it." The words felt unreal. The arrest made headlines the next day.
rival factions exposed, hidden networks dismantled. Suddenly, the shadows that had followed them for months were dragged into the light. For the first time, the silence didn't feel threatening. It felt final. Weeks passed without incident. Ava returned to her work fully, throwing herself into a new exhibition, images of survival, of quiet strength, of choosing life after fear. The response was overwhelming. Invitations, interviews, recognition she had once believed wasn't meant for her. Sajan stayed in the background, watching her build something that was entirely hers. One evening, as they sat watching the sun melt into the ocean, Ava turned to him. "Do you ever miss it? The power?" He considered. "I miss certainty, not control." She nodded. "I miss who I was before all this." "And who are you now?" he asked. She smiled softly. "Someone who knows she can survive." He took her hand. "That's who I fell in love with." If this story is hitting you emotionally right now, subscribe and like, because the final chapters are where everything finally comes together. Ava leaned into him, the past finally loosening its grip. But one final reckoning still waited, not from enemies, but from the future they were choosing.
The future arrived quietly. No sirens, no threats, no shadows watching from across the street. Just paperwork. Ava never imagined that after everything, fear, violence, survival, it would be documents that made her hands shake the most. They sat at the long dining table in the new house, stacks of folders spread between them. Lawyers had come and gone all day, speaking in calm, measured voices about timelines, transfers, and final exits. This was the part no one warned you about, the dismantling. Seojin flipped through a document, his expression unreadable. Once this is signed, there's no going back. Ava studied his face. "Are you hesitating?" He exhaled slowly. "I'm remembering." She reached across the table and took his hand. "You're not that man anymore." "I know," he said. "But ghosts don't disappear just because you move forward." She squeezed his fingers. "Then we move anyway." He signed. One by one, the papers were completed. With every signature, Ava felt something loosen inside her chest. Not relief exactly, more like acceptance. The understanding that peace wasn't the absence of danger, but the choice to keep living despite it. That night, they lay together listening to the ocean. Ava traced idle patterns on Seojin's arm. "What happens now?" she asked softly. "Now," he said, "we build something that doesn't need hiding." Weeks later, they stood in a small courthouse, the room nearly empty. No cameras, no guests, no spectacle, just a quiet moment that belonged to them alone. When the officiant asked if they accepted each other freely and without coercion, Ava almost laughed at the irony. "I do," she said firmly. Seojin's voice didn't waver. "I do." The ring was simple, unassuming, solid. As they walked out into the sunlight, Ava felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Light. Life in New York was different. Faster, louder, but anonymous in a way that suited them. Seojin operated legitimate businesses now, quiet investments, advisory roles, no headlines, no fear. Ava's photography took off in ways she never expected. Her work was raw, intimate, honest. Critics called it brave. Survivors called it familiar. One evening after an exhibition, Ava stood alone for a moment, watching people study her photos. A young woman wiped tears from her eyes. A man nodded slowly, as if seeing himself reflected back. Seojin appeared beside her. "You did this," he said. "We did," she corrected. Later that night, as they walked home, Ava's phone buzzed. Unknown number. Her body reacted before her mind could catch up, heart racing, breath tightening. Seojin noticed instantly. "Hey," he said gently, "you're safe." She opened the message with shaking fingers. It wasn't a threat, it wasn't a warning, it was silence, a blank text. Ava stared at the screen, then laughed, a sharp, disbelieving sound that turned into something softer. "It's nothing," she said, just nothing." Seojin smiled. "Then it's over." Months passed, then a year. Ava stood in front of her mirror one morning, adjusting her hair, catching her own reflection. She looked different, not just older, but steadier. Her eyes no longer searched for approval. They held it. She picked up her phone and scrolled back through old photos. There it was, the red lingerie, the picture that had started everything. She stared at it for a long moment, then locked the phone and set it down. That night she sat beside Seojin on their balcony, city lights stretching endlessly before them. "Do you ever think about that night?" she asked. "All the time," he replied. "Do you regret it?" He shook his head. "It was the most dangerous mistake of my life." "And?" she prompted. "And the only one I don't wish I could undo." Ava leaned against him, feeling the steady rise and fall of his chest. "I used to think playing it safe was the smartest thing you could do. And now? Now I think some risks save you," she said quietly. "If you've stayed with this story all the way here, pause and comment below, because the ending isn't just about love, it's about becoming. The past didn't vanish, it never really does, but it no longer controlled them. Still, one final moment waited, one Ava would never forget, and it would come from the last person she expected.
The call came on an ordinary afternoon. Ava was editing photos at her desk, sunlight warming the edge of the screen when her phone rang. A real number this time. Local. No hidden ID. No warning bells. She almost ignored it. "Hello?" she said cautiously. "Ava Carter?" a woman asked. "Yes. This is Agent Morales." Ava closed her eyes. Seojin looked up from across the room immediately, reading her face. She lifted a finger, 1 second, and stepped onto the balcony. "What do you want?" Ava asked calmly. "I wanted to inform you," Morales said, voice neutral, almost tired, "that the case is officially closed." Ava leaned against the railing. "You already told us that." "This is different," Morales replied. "The last appeal was denied this morning. No charges, no reopening, no further contact." Ava's throat tightened. "So that's it?" "Yes," Morales said. "I won't pretend I agree with every outcome, but the law is the law." There was a pause. "For what it's worth," Morales added, "you were never the target. You were collateral." Ava's jaw clenched. "That's not comforting." "I didn't think it would be," Morales said. "I just wanted you to hear it from me. Goodbye, Miss Carter." The call ended. Ava stayed there for a long moment, the city humming beneath her, the wind brushing against her skin. When she turned back inside, Seojin was already standing. "It's over," she said softly. He searched her face. "Completely?" She nodded. "Completely." For the first time since she'd met him, Seojin exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for years. He crossed the room in 2 strides and pulled her into his arms. Not tight, not desperate, just present. They stood like that for a long time. That night, Ava dreamed without fear. No running, no shadows, no doors being forced open, just quiet. Weeks turned into months. Life settled into something almost unfamiliar, routine. Morning coffee, work deadlines, arguments over which takeout place was better, ordinary things that once felt impossible. One evening, Ava received a message from Lena.
I still can't believe how your life turned out. From a breakup spiral to global exhibitions? Wild. Ava smiled. She typed back, "It started with the worst mistake of my life." Then paused, deleted it, rewrote, "It started with the bravest thing I ever did." Later that night, Ava sat with Sagen on the couch, flipping through old photos on her laptop for a new project. When she reached the red lingerie photo again, she hesitated. Sagen noticed. "Does that one still scare you?" She considered. "It used to. Now it feels distant." "Do you regret taking it?" he asked. She shook her head. "No. I regret sending it to the wrong place, but I don't regret taking it." He nodded. "You weren't trying to seduce anyone." "No," she said. "I was trying to remind myself I mattered." He reached out and closed the laptop gently. "You always did." They moved to the balcony, city lights flickering below. Ava rested her head against his shoulder. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I'd never sent it?" he asked honestly. "And?" He said, "I think we would have survived, but we wouldn't have lived." She smiled faintly. Funny how danger clarifies things. Danger strips away illusions. Love decides what stays. Years later, Ava would stand on a stage accepting an award she never dreamed of winning. She would talk about resilience, about reclaiming power, about choosing courage when fear feels safer. She wouldn't mention names, she wouldn't mention crime, but she would say this: "Sometimes the moment that feels like the biggest mistake of your life is actually the moment you stop hiding from yourself." Sagen would be watching from the back of the room, proud, invisible, exactly where he wanted to be. That night, as they walked home hand in hand, Ava glanced up at him. "If I could go back, I wouldn't change a thing." He smiled. "Neither would I." Because the truth was simple. She didn't send a sexy photo to the wrong man. She sent it to the man who would change her life. And he didn't show up at her house to claim her. He showed up to meet the woman who reminded him what it meant to choose something better. If this story kept you glued till the end, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment, because stories like this only exist when you're here to watch them. Sometimes the most dangerous choices are the ones that save you.